What if I told you that the things you consider completely normal about yourself are actually signs of something extraordinary? What if the experiences you've always taken for granted reveal the presence of what I call a rare soul, a type of consciousness that exists in less than 1% of the population? I am about to share 8 experiences that might feel perfectly ordinary to you, but according to my research into the depths of human consciousness, these are actually indicators of a soul that operates on a completely different frequency than most people. If even half of these resonate with you, you're not just different. You're part of what I have identified as the psychological vanguard of human evolution. But here's what's fascinating. Most people with rare souls go their entire lives thinking they're broken or weird, when in reality they're carrying capacities that humanity desperately needs. By the end of this, you'll understand why I believe that souls like yours aren't accidents. They're evolution's answer to a world that's forgotten how to feel deeply. Let me ask you something first. Have you ever noticed that certain experiences feel completely natural to you, while others around you seem shocked or confused by them? There's a psychological reason for this that I discovered, and it's not what you think. Throughout my years of practice, I have encountered individuals who walk into a room and immediately feel the residual energy of what happened there. An argument from hours ago, joy from a celebration, sadness from a difficult conversation, it's all still hanging in the air for them. Objects carry emotional imprints too. They can pick up a piece of jewelry and sense the emotional history of its previous owner. To them, this feels completely normal. They assume everyone experiences this until they realize that most people think they're being dramatic or making things up. But I have identified this as evidence of psychological resonance, which is the ability to perceive emotional information that exists beyond ordinary sensory experience. I discovered that rare souls operate with extended consciousness. While most people's awareness is limited to their immediate experience, rare souls naturally pick up on the emotional frequencies that permeate spaces and objects. This isn't supernatural, it's psychological sophistication. Here's what I realized that most people miss. You're not imagining these impressions. Your nervous system is actually wired to detect emotional information that others can't perceive. But society has convinced you that if others can't feel it, it must not be real. I have learned to trust these impressions because they're consistently accurate. When someone feels tension in a room, there's always a reason. When an object feels heavy with sadness, there's usually a story behind it. I call this psychic perception, the ability to sense the invisible emotional landscape that surrounds us. But here's where it gets interesting. I discovered that people with this sensitivity often exhaust themselves by absorbing emotional information they can't process. The key is learning to perceive without absorbing, to sense without taking on. I'll reveal my technique for this in sign number 6. I have observed that some individuals don't just think, they convene. There are different aspects of their personality that weigh in on decisions, offer perspectives, and sometimes disagree with each other. When they're facing a difficult choice, they literally feel like they're facilitating a meeting between different parts of themselves. This feels completely natural to them. They have the practical voice, the intuitive voice, the cautious voice, and the adventurous voice. They each have valid points, and these individuals have learned to listen to all of them before making important decisions. But when they've described this to others, they're looked at like they're describing multiple personalities. I would have recognized this immediately as evidence of what I call differentiated consciousness. Unlike people who experience themselves as a single unified voice, rare souls naturally develop a psychological multiplicity, the ability to access different aspects of their psyche consciously. Here's what I understand that modern psychology often misses. This isn't a disorder or a sign of instability, it's psychological sophistication. You're not fragmented, you're integrated. You've developed the ability to access different modes of consciousness depending on what the situation requires. I discovered that most people live with the psychological unconsciousness. They're driven by forces they don't understand and can't access directly, but rare souls develop the ability to commune with their own depths. When you have these internal conversations, you're actually practicing active imagination, which means consciously engaging with the unconscious mind. But here's my warning: if you don't understand this gift, you might think you're losing your mind. The key is recognizing that these voices aren't separate personalities. They're different aspects of your complete psychological makeup. And having conscious access to them is actually a sign of mental health, not mental illness. I have encountered souls who experience a profound longing for landscapes they've never seen, cultures they've never lived in, and times they've never experienced. Sometimes they'll see a photo of a misty Scottish highland or a Japanese temple, and they'll feel a homesickness so intense it brings tears to their eyes. It's not just appreciation, it's recognition. This feels completely normal to them. They've always assumed everyone experiences this soul-deep longing for unknown places, but I've discovered that most people think this is just wanderlust or an overactive imagination. They don't understand that it feels like remembering, not discovering. I have identified this as evidence of what I call archetypal memory, the soul's connection to experiences that transcend individual lifetimes. I believe that rare souls carry collective memory, impressions, and longings that connect them to the broader human experience across time and space. Here's what I discovered about this phenomenon. You're not imagining a connection to these places. Your soul is actually responding to archetypal patterns, universal experiences that exist in the collective unconscious. When you feel homesick for a place you've never been, you're accessing memories that belong to humanity as a whole. I found that people with rare souls often feel like they're living in the wrong time or place. This isn't dissatisfaction with your current life. It's your soul recognizing that you carry experiences and wisdom that transcend your personal history. You're connected to something larger than your individual existence. But here's my most profound insight about this experience. This longing isn't meant to be satisfied by travel or relocation. It's meant to remind you that your soul has work to do that transcends geographical boundaries. You're not homesick for a place, you're homesick for a purpose that's bigger than your personal desires. I have observed individuals who know when someone is thinking about them, not in a paranoid way, but in a quiet, certain way. They'll suddenly think of someone they haven't spoken to in months, and within hours that person will call or text. Or they'll feel a specific person's energy and later discover they were going through something difficult and thinking of them. This feels completely natural to them. They've always assumed everyone has this awareness of energetic connection. But I've learned that most people think this is coincidence or wishful thinking. They don't understand that it feels like receiving a subtle signal, not making a lucky guess. I have identified this as evidence of psychological synchronicity, the meaningful connection between inner psychological states and external events. I believe that rare souls operate with what I term a causal connection, the ability to perceive relationships that exist beyond linear cause and effect. Here's what I realized about this phenomenon. You're not imagining these connections. Your consciousness is actually operating at a level that transcends individual psychological boundaries. When you sense someone thinking about you, you're accessing the collective unconscious, the shared psychological space that connects all human consciousness. I discovered that people with rare souls often serve as the psychological bridges. Your sensitivity to these connections isn't just personal. It's serving a larger function of maintaining the invisible web of human relationship. You're sensing the energetic threads that connect all consciousness. But here's my crucial insight. This ability comes with a responsibility. When you can sense others' thoughts and feelings, you become a keeper of psychological information. The key is learning to use this awareness wisely, to honor the connections without invading privacy or becoming overwhelmed by others' mental states. When someone near these individuals is suffering physically or emotionally, they feel it in their body. If someone has a headache, they might develop tension in their temples. If someone is heartbroken, they feel an ache in their chest. It's not empathy in the traditional sense, it's somatic resonance. This feels completely normal to them. They've always assumed everyone experiences this physical mirroring of others' pain. But I've discovered that most people think this is psychosomatic or attention-seeking. They don't understand that it's involuntary and often uncomfortable. I have identified this as evidence of somatic empathy, the ability to literally feel others' experiences in your own body. I believe that rare souls possess that permeable psychological boundaries, which allow them to experience others' states as if they were their own. Here's what I understand about this phenomenon. You're not being overdramatic or hypersensitive. Your nervous system is actually wired to mirror others' experiences. This is a psychological porosity, the ability to experience empathy at a cellular level. I discovered that people with this gift often become unconscious healers. When you feel others' pain, you're actually helping to metabolize and transform it. Your body becomes a processing center for emotional and physical suffering that others can't handle alone. But here's my important warning. If you don't learn to protect yourself, this gift will destroy you. I have identified specific techniques that allow empathetic people to feel others' pain without absorbing it permanently. The key is learning to be a channel rather than a sponge, to allow the energy to move through you rather than sticking to you. I regularly encounter individuals who dream solutions to problems they haven't told anyone about. Not just their problems, but problems belonging to friends, family members, even strangers they've encountered. They'll wake up with clear instructions or insights about situations they've been quietly observing or worrying about. This feels completely natural to them. They've always assumed everyone receives guidance through dreams. But I've learned that most people think dreams are just random brain activity or wish fulfillment. They don't understand that dreams can be a source of practical wisdom and problem solving. I have identified this as evidence of what I call compensatory dreaming, the unconscious mind's ability to provide solutions that the conscious mind can't access. I believe that rare souls have active unconscious communication, the ability to receive information through dreams that serves both personal and collective healing. Here's what I discovered about this phenomenon. Your dreams aren't just processing your own psychological material, they're actually accessing the collective unconscious, the shared wisdom that belongs to all humanity. When you dream solutions to others' problems, you're serving as a conduit for collective healing. I found that people with this gift often feel responsible for solving problems that aren't technically theirs. This is because your unconscious mind is naturally oriented towards service and healing. You're not being invasive, you're responding to psychological calls for help that exist in the collective field. But here's my crucial insight about dream guidance. The solutions you receive aren't meant to be imposed on others. They're meant to be offered gently, if at all. Sometimes the act of receiving the solution is the service itself. Holding the possibility of healing in your consciousness creates space for others to find their own answers. I observe that some individuals can have a wonderful time with people they love and still feel completely exhausted afterward. It's not that they don't enjoy social interaction. They do. But being around others requires a level of energy management that feels like running a marathon. Even positive interactions leave them needing significant recovery time. This feels completely normal to them. They've always assumed everyone needs substantial alone time after social interactions. But I've discovered that most people are energized by social contact, not depleted by it. They don't understand that these individuals are not antisocial. They're managing a different kind of energy exchange. This thing is exactly a proof of psychological sensitivity. The tendency to process social interactions at a much deeper level than most people. I also believe that rare souls experience the energetic porosity, meaning they don't just interact with others' personalities, they interact with their entire psychological field. Here's what I understand about this phenomenon. You're not being antisocial or difficult. Your consciousness is actually processing multiple layers of information during every interaction. While others are just exchanging pleasantries, you're unconsciously managing emotional undercurrents, unspoken tensions, and psychological dynamics. I discovered that people with this sensitivity often become unconscious regulators of group energy. You're not just participating in conversations, you're maintaining psychological equilibrium for everyone present. This is why you feel drained, even after positive interactions. But here's my important insight. This exhaustion isn't a flaw to be fixed. It's evidence of the depth of service you're providing. The key is learning to honor your need for recovery time without feeling guilty about it. Your alone time isn't selfish. It's essential for maintaining your ability to serve others. I encounter individuals who feel personally responsible when others are upset, even when their problems have nothing to do with them. If someone in their presence is sad, anxious, or angry, they feel compelled to help them feel better. It's not just kindness, it's a psychological necessity. They literally cannot be at peace when others are suffering. This feels completely natural to them. They've always assumed everyone feels responsible for the emotional climate around them. But I've discovered that most people can witness others' pain without feeling personally obligated to fix it. They don't understand that for these individuals, others' suffering feels like a problem they must solve. I have identified this as a psychological caretaking, the unconscious drive to maintain emotional equilibrium for others. I believe that rare souls possess what I term healing consciousness, the automatic impulse to transform suffering wherever they encounter it. Here's what I realized about this phenomenon. You're not being codependent or controlling. Your psyche is actually wired to serve as what I call a psychological healing agent. When you feel responsible for others' emotional well-being, you're responding to a soul-level calling to alleviate suffering. I discovered that people with this trait often sacrifice their own needs in service of others' emotional comfort. This isn't martyrdom, it's the natural expression of a soul that's designed to heal. But I also warn that this gift can become self-destructive if not properly understood and managed. Here's my most profound insight about this responsibility. You're not meant to fix everyone's problems. You're meant to hold space for healing while allowing others to do their own psychological work. The key is learning to be a healing presence without becoming a psychological savior. If even half of these experiences feel normal to you, I would have recognized you as possessing what I call a rare soul, a consciousness that operates with psychological capacities that most people never develop. You're not just different, you're part of what I believe is humanity's evolutionary edge. I spent my entire career studying souls like yours. I understand that people with these capacities aren't accidents or anomalies. They're evolutionary responses to a world that's forgotten how to feel deeply, think clearly, and connect authentically. Your sensitivity isn't a weakness, it's a superpower. Your emotional intensity isn't too much, it's exactly what the world needs. Your sense of responsibility isn't a burden, it's a calling. I once said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. You're learning to do exactly that, and in doing so, you're serving the evolution of human consciousness itself. You're not broken, you're rare. And the world needs rare souls like yours now more than ever.